The Ugly Duckling. Once upon a time, in the heart of a peaceful countryside, there was a cozy little farm surrounded by a shimmering pond. It was here that Mother Duck lived with her brood of adorable ducklings. As spring arrived, Mother Duck sat patiently on her nest, waiting for her eggs to hatch. One by one, the eggs began to crack open, revealing fluffy, yellow ducklings that chirped happily and waddled around their mother. But one egg, larger than the rest, remained unhatched. Finally, the last egg began to tremble, and with a loud crack, it split open. Out tumbled the duckling, but he looked different from his siblings. He was larger, his feathers were gray and scruffy, and his beak was longer and darker. The other ducklings stared in astonishment and whispered among themselves. "What an odd-looking duckling," they said. "He doesn't look like us at all." Despite his unusual appearance, Mother Duck loved all her ducklings equally. She gathered them around her and said, "My dear children, this is your brother. Though he looks different, he is one of us. Let us all be kind and loving to each other." But the other ducklings were not so kind. They began to tease the gray duckling, calling him names and making fun of his appearance. "Ugly, ugly duckling," they chanted, and they refused to play with him. The poor duckling felt lonely and sad. He wondered why he looked so different and why no one liked him. Days turned into weeks, and the bullying continued. The other animals on the farm joined in, making the ugly duckling's life even harder. He felt out of place and unwanted. One day, unable to bear the cruelty any longer, the ugly duckling decided to run away. He waddled through the fields, past the meadows, and into the deep, dark forest. As night fell, the ugly duckling found shelter under a large bush near a shimmering lake. He shivered from the cold and felt a pang of loneliness. He missed his family, even though they had been unkind. But he knew he could not go back. He had to find a place where he belonged. The next morning, the ugly duckling awoke to the sound of chirping birds and the gentle rustling of leaves. He ventured out of his hiding place and wandered to the edge of the lake. As he peered into the water, he saw a group of beautiful white swans gliding gracefully across the surface. The swans were elegant and majestic, with long necks and pure, white feathers that gleamed in the sunlight. The ugly duckling watched the swans with awe and admiration. "How beautiful they are," he thought. "If only I could be like them." He felt a deep longing to join the swans, but he knew he was too different, too ugly to belong with such magnificent creatures. Winter came, and the days grew colder. The ugly duckling struggled to find food and warmth. He sought refuge in a farmer's barn, but even there, he was not welcome. The barn animals chased him away, leaving him to fend for himself. Despite the hardships, the ugly duckling persevered, holding on to a glimmer of hope that one day, he would find a place where he belonged. As the harsh winter slowly gave way to spring, the ugly duckling grew stronger and bigger. His gray feathers began to molt, and new ones took their place. One day, he ventured to the lake once more, feeling a strange sense of anticipation. To his astonishment, he saw the swans returning to the lake, their beauty even more breathtaking than before. The ugly duckling approached the water, his heart pounding with a mixture of fear and hope. He gazed at his reflection and gasped. Gone were the scruffy gray feathers and awkward appearance. In their place were sleek, white feathers and a graceful long neck. The ugly duckling had transformed into a beautiful swan. With newfound confidence, the young swan spread his wings and glided across the lake to join the other swans. They welcomed him with open wings, recognizing him as one of their own. The swans admired his beauty and grace, and the young swan finally felt a sense of belonging and acceptance. As he swam with his new friends, the young swan reflected on his journey. He had endured loneliness, hardship, and cruelty, but through it all, he had remained kind and hopeful. He had discovered his true self and found a place where he was loved and appreciated. The young swan's story soon spread across the countryside, becoming a tale of inspiration and hope. The animals on the farm heard about the ugly duckling's transformation and felt ashamed of how they had treated him. They learned an important lesson: that true beauty comes from within, and that kindness and acceptance are what truly matter. From that day on, the farm animals made an effort to be kinder and more accepting of others, no matter how different they appeared. The young swan visited the farm from time to time, not with bitterness, but with a heart full of forgiveness and compassion. He had found his place in the world, and he wanted to share his story to inspire others to believe in themselves and to never lose hope. And so, the young swan lived happily ever after, surrounded by friends who loved him for who he was, both inside and out. He became a symbol of resilience, kindness, and the transformative power of believing in oneself. This unique retelling of the Ugly Duckling emphasizes the importance of self-acceptance, perseverance, and the realization that true beauty lies within. It also highlights the power of forgiveness and the impact of kindness and acceptance in creating a more compassionate world.